that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 443rd edition of Energy Week with George Harvey. That's me.
Next week is 444.
That's right. And the amazing Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
In the flesh. I bet you don't know what 444 Marlin is.
No, I don't.
444 Marlin is a cartridge.
It's a gun, isn't it?
It's a cartridge that was used in Marlin rifles.
Okay.
And it was kind of a 20th century update of the old 45-70.
444 is pretty large.
It's pretty large. It's basically a long 44 Magnum, and it was a pretty hefty cartridge in terms of power.
I would expect. I mean, the Magnum was pretty hefty.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I don't want to go into that. Every day I go to the internet and I find whatever news I can about energy and climate change. And I put it up at my blog. Usually I'll have a synopsis and a link for each of anywhere from 10 to 15 articles every day.
So what we're doing is the best of the blog.
What we're going to talk about is the best of the stuff that was posted in the previous week. Today is the 4th of November, so our weekly show starts with news from the 28th of October, which means
which was last Friday.
Last Thursday. We start we start with Thursday
and
end with Wednesday.
End with Thursday.
And if you want to see the material that we work from, if you want to go to one of the articles and read it, you can go to geoharvey.com, my blog, and go to the calendar and click on the calendar for the date, and then find it there. But
some of these things are well worth pursuing. I mean, there's a lot of information out there. I've come to rely on CNN. They do some pretty good stuff.
Yeah, they
do.
And
they almost always have a video.
They are starting a new section of CNN that is just about climate change.
Oh yeah, all right.
Yeah, and energy. You can also find the links if you look at the page you're watching this on the internet. You can go down on it and you'll find a file that you can download, which is the file that Tom and I work from, or alternatively, you can go online to the Energy Week link for the show, which has just the 21 shows that we have.
Well, I've come to look forward to the CNN videos that are attached. They're all 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And almost every one of them is A, well done, and B, worth looking at.
Yes. Yes. They have them on not all of their stories, but almost all of them.
Yeah.
They have some kind of video. Okay, I suppose we should start right in with a Metacane.
There's a picture here.
And you can see it.
I'll see if I can get it up
behind us on the screen.
It's still early.
Still too early in the day for you, Tom?
Oh, come on, you. There we go.
Okay.
My God, that looks like a Metacane to me.
It looks like a Metacane to me, and it's right over off
That's the island of Sicily, isn't it?
Right off the east coast of Sicily. That's right.
Looks like it was kind of rainy that day in Sicily. Not a good day to go outdoors.
Not a good day to go outdoors. This is from CNN.
And what does it say to us? Metacane storm tears through southern Italy, flooding streets and leaving 2 dead.
A Metacane, which is a hurricane-like storm that's formed over the Mediterranean Sea, dumped 1 year worth of rain on the Lingua Glossa region of Sicily in 2 days.
I hate it when that happens.
Yeah, it's not nice. Lingua Glossa is from 2 words. One of them is Latin, the other is Greek. And it
language
means,
of what?
It means tongue.
Tongue. Oh, okay, tongue.
And it's tongue in Latin and tongue in Greek. The extraordinary wet weather is brought by climate change, along with the periods of drought that climate change brings.
Well, there's a lot of pictures in this article and a nice short 1-minute video.
Yeah. And
That's from CNN.
It's just, this is happening more and more often.
Well, at the time they wrote this, southern Italy was expecting 2 more days of devastating rain and flash flooding.
Yeah.
And there's a quote. The event is not over. Now is a moment of attenuation, but weather models tell us it will be back.
Oh, it'll be back.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, it'll be back.
Well, medicanes occur around twice a year, usually between September and December, so this one's happening.
This one is, yeah.
And again, a medicane is a Mediterranean hurricane.
Right you are. Okay.
Let's move along here.
Okay, I have a picture. That picture's up, and here this picture's up.
And here comes this picture, and this is a refinery, isn't it?
Huh?
A refinery?
Petrochemical plant is what it
That's
says.
a refinery, yeah.
Yeah. This is from CNN.
A little more on this one later in the show.
What's that?
We're going to be talking about this a little bit later again, so we'll talk about it now. And fossil fuel executives set to testify at House Oversight hearing on climate disinformation.
Yes.
Da-da-da.
For the first time, the executives of major fossil fuel companies and industry groups will testify before a congressional committee about the spread of disinformation on climate crisis and the role of their organizations have played in it. Now, this particular article went up before the testimony.
It did, huh?
Which is why we've got another one coming later on that talks about...
That repeats a lot of this.
It talks about what they said.
There's an informative 4-minute video attached to this.
Yes.
And it's called Big Oil is Going All Out. So if you can't get it by clicking, search for it. It's worth looking at.
Yeah.
It's 4 minutes, and there's a lot of information in it.
Yeah.
So from this article, it says executives from ExxonMobil, BP, Chevron, Shell, and the American Petroleum Institute and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce are going to appear at this House Oversight hearing. And I'm sure they're not happy appearing.
Well, I'm sure they're not happy about appearing, but, that's what they did, and there were responses to the things that they said that they're probably not happy about, too.
Well, the House Oversight Committee Chair, Carolyn Maloney, who's from my part of the world, Democrat from New York, okay? She represents the east side of Manhattan and the west side of the Bronx.
Okay.
Said that the oil companies have made payments to shadow groups, public relations firms, and others, employing tactics they have used for decades on climate policy. Quote, delay and obstruction.
Yeah.
I mean, it's business as usual.
Yeah. And people die as a result.
Unfortunately.
And, from my point of view, the fact that people are dying means that you've got homicide involved.
You can look at it that way.
And the fact that it's not premeditated homicide or intentional homicide means that it's unintentional
Still homicide.
But
yeah,
I would throw, what is the term? Indifference. There's.
I'm trying to.
There's a term for gross indifference. It's not gross.
Negligence?
Yeah, and that raises unintentional homicide to first-degree murder.
It does, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
And, these guys are playing games.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's hard to know where those games are going to wind up for them.
Well, they've got money invested.
Yeah.
They don't want stranded assets.
Yeah.
But the people are waking up, and they're trying to keep them from waking up.
Yeah. Okay, if you don't mind, Tom, do you have more about that one?
No, I don't. I got a nice picture of a local post office, though.
There you go. This post office, this is one of my favorite pictures of the week. That post office, and it says so right in the caption for it. This came from Wikipedia or Wikimedia Commons. That is the oldest continually used post office in the United States.
It's only across the river in Hinsdale,
It's just
Hampshire.
across the river. It's a bike ride from Brattleboro.
I'm sure I've seen that building. I know I've seen it. I just don't recognize it.
I've been in it.
Give that man a raisin.
A raisin. Okay, this is from the Brattleboro Reformer.
It is that, isn't
Yeah,
it? How
it is.
about that? Well, this is a long article from the Brattleboro Reformer, too. Hinsdale solar project shines light on deficiencies in New Hampshire's renewable policies. Ta-da!
By the middle of November, Next Era, which is the name of a utility, will present to New Hampshire's Site Evaluation Committee its plan for a 50 megawatt. That's not small.
Well, if you want to see what 5 megawatts looks like, go up to Ferry Road, and that looks pretty big to me.
Yeah.
So 50 megawatts is a little bit bigger than that.
Yep. It's a plan for a 50 megawatt solar farm on property held by private landowners in the commercial industrial district on both sides of Lipscomb Brook in Hinsdale.
Well, if you drive south on 119, go past Walmart, go past Tractor Supply, you'll see the Hinsdale Town Park on the right.
Right.
This river goes right through that.
Right.
And the place they're talking about is upriver on this river.
And it's meadow.
Pretty much.
It's
There's
not.
nothing up
I don't
there.
think it's even plowed. I think it's just they may.
Well, there's a lot of on that road itself is called Monument Drive,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of businesses on that.
Okay.
I mean, there are offices for businesses, you know, but there is a factory there that makes chains.
Okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
The project is a conforming use under Hinsdale zoning ordinance, so they can't do much about it.
Yeah.
More than 10 arrays will be sited on different parcels in a 500-acre district, so this is going to be significant.
Yeah.
The arrays will start producing in late 2023,
There you go.
and a number of communities in Massachusetts have already signed power purchase agreements. But this is interesting because policies in New Hampshire are a disincentive to selling renewables. So they have to go to Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Less than 1% of New Hampshire's power produced comes from solar.
Wow.
Wow, huh?
Okay. Our next item.
Friday, October 29th.
You have the same date I do.
Amazing. What a
Amazing.
coincidence.
Okay, this is
We
from
got a
Clean
picture here
Wait a
coming
minute,
up, and this
that's
is the
not the
wrong
right
picture.
one. There's the right one.
That's the right picture.
And that is a geothermal plant in Iceland, and I want to point out
There's a lot of them in Iceland.
Yeah, though there are two different kinds of colors of vapors coming up. Neither one of them is smoke. Those are both steam. It's just a matter
The
of...
ones in the back definitely are steam. That's
and
the cooling
ones,
towers.
Yeah, and the ones in the foreground are also steam.
Okay.
But they're just denser than the ones in back. And what do you
Well,
have?
a geothermal plant doesn't use any fuel.
That's right. Not unless somebody in it is smoking.
Some good news. 10 countries generate almost 100% renewable electricity.
Isn't that amazing? Sometimes it's good to notice the small victories and celebrate them and find ways to learn from them. Today's small victory is that there are already 10 countries in the world whose electric power comes from 97 to 100% renewable energy sources.
Well, it's early in the show, so I'm going to mention who the 10 countries are.
Okay,
Albania, Bhutan, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Costa Rica, Ethiopia, Iceland, Namibia, Nepal, Norway, and Paraguay. They're all over the place.
they are all over the place, but there's one thing to bear in mind here, Tom. It says 97 to 100%.
Yeah.
Some of those countries get more than 100%,
Oh, yeah, they export it.
and they
Yeah.
export it. Paraguay
I was just going to say
is
Paraguay.
like 1,000% for
They're
years.
doing very well selling their power.
Yeah, they are. And it's funny because I keep hearing people say, well, might be easy to get to 80% or even 90%, but that last 10% is going to be hard to do. And they
Depends on
don't,
what's going on.
they don't realize the 100% mark is not a limit.
Of course
It's
not. There's
just-
always a market for electricity.
Yeah, you can go way beyond it. So,
I mean, they're talking about a pipeline, not a pipeline, an underground cable from Australia way the heck up to Singapore.
and a submarine cable from Iceland to
To Norway,
Scotland.
huh? To Scotland.
Or
Okay.
Norway or
Yeah.
whatever, you know. Okay, more? No? Okay.
Well, it's a quick one. This is not just wealthy countries.
No, absolutely
Okay.
not.
Several African countries are on it, along with countries in South America.
How
And the
wealthy
Caribbean.
is Albania, for
Well,
crying out loud?
absolutely.
Okay. Our next item is from CNN.
Look at a nice picture here.
We have a picture here of, this is in North Carolina.
That's interesting because these are flimsily made cheap buildings and they're each worth over $1 million.
Oh, man.
Location, location, location.
Yeah.
If you look at those things, in all probability, there's one apartment that's lived in by the owner. And there's about 6 apartments that are rented all season long for exorbitant rents.
Well, you know, when I was living in Plymouth, Massachusetts, I found out that I could move to a different apartment and save $300 a month on my rent, which was at that time only $750. I could have like a 40% discount. The one problem was I couldn't afford to stay there for 1 month during the summer season.
Okay.
Because this rent suddenly jumped from like $400 a month to
almost
$3,500 a month.
Right.
Because
it's interesting because those buildings, they're flimsy.
Yeah.
They don't look like much.
Okay.
And there's seawater underneath them.
Yeah. Well, there is in the picture.
Oh, yeah.
During normal times, they're sitting there on a beach.
They're sitting on a beach.
Okay, this is from
Forecasters
CNN.
predict one of the biggest tidal flood events of the past 2 decades.
Over 20 million people are under alerts for coastal flooding, including the residents of Baltimore and Washington, D.C. I learned how to say Baltimore from a person who lived there. As a large and powerful low-pressure system shifts from the central U.S. toward the northeast, 2 to 4 feet of coastal flooding is likely. And I got to tell you, this is just one event of a bunch of events that have been hitting the United States. And although this one happened,
it's going to keep going too.
It happened a week ago. There's one going on now,
as we speak.
As we speak, off the coast of Georgia.
Well, there's an interesting map there that shows where some of this stuff is happening.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's a short video about flash floods that's worth looking at.
Have you ever seen a flash flood?
Uptight, upright, up close.
Up close.
No.
When I was in school,
I think it's a little scary.
When I was in school in Connecticut, the school I was in was on the Housatonic River. And that river experienced a flash flood when I was in the 8th grade. It was a boarding school. And it overflowed its banks, and there was a, I think, 10-foot tall wall that ran along the river with a road next to it on the riverside, and then about 8 or 10 feet of grass. And I think if a person had been walking along that road when the water started to rise,
they'd have been squashed,
they would have had to run
wow.
to get out of the way, because that river rose about 12 feet in just a couple of minutes. And I mean, there were
That's a flash flood.
That's a flash flood. There were ice flows knocking down large trees along the edge of the river. Crazy. Okay.
There's a quote from the article, and I quote, "Usually when we have tidal events this extreme, it's from hurricanes and tropical events. Usually. This is just low pressure moving in.
Yeah.
But that strong low pressure is working against high pressure over New England. This combination is driving the easterly flow right off the Atlantic and piling up all that ocean water up the bay.
All our fault for being in New England.
This isn't supposed to happen this way.
It's not supposed to happen. Okay.
No, wind gusts were expected to reach as high as 60 miles an hour.
Oh, man.
Blowing down trees and power lines.
Okay. Okay, our next item.
Who's this guy? Who's this guy?
There he is.
There he is.
By the way, I want to point out, the article is about a message that he read. He's not reading the message here. I think he's probably
commenting on it, huh?
No, he's not even commenting on it. This is a different time. He's probably delivering a sermon, but he's got his ecclesiastical garb on that he would wear for a mass.
Well, yeah.
So this is
you can see around his neck is what they call a stole.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a symbol of office.
Yeah.
The stole.
Yeah. Okay, this is from the BBC.
Pope urges, quote, radical climate response in an exclusive BBC message.
Yes. And the Pope, you will notice, is wearing a yarmulke.
Yeah. It's called a zucchetto.
I'm glad you know that, because the only thing I knew was yarmulke. And people who are Catholic told me yarmulke. That's what they said. But, you know, I could see there was
it's a zucchetto, and they're slightly different from a yarmulke.
Okay. One is that they're not pinned on.
The Zucchetto's a little bit bigger than a yarmulke.
I suppose it is, although it would do for one.
It would do for one, sure it would.
Okay, the Pope, you said, you read the headline, right?
Well, I'll read it again.
Okay.
Pope urges a radical climate response in an exclusive BBC message.
In a message recorded exclusively for the BBC, Pope Francis has called on world leaders meeting next week. Of course, the meeting is already going on now at the UN Climate Conference in Glasgow to provide, quote, effective responses, end quote, to the environment emergency and offer, quote, concrete hope, end quote, to future generations. And I got to tell you, so far it looks like there have been failures at this climate conference, and
So far, it's only been in existence since Sunday. Huh?
Yeah, but there have also been some pretty spectacular successes, and we will talk about
Talk
them.
about it next week. We'll spend the whole week talking about it.
Well, no, we'll have other things to talk about, but we've got some of them to talk about.
Well, there's a short video here of Pope Francis delivering his message on the BBC radio.
Yeah.
And he talked of crises, including the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, and economic difficulties, and urged the world to respond to them with, quote, vision and radical decisions so as not to waste opportunities that the current challenges present.
Opportunities. These
That's
opportunities
an
are
important
big
word.
opportunities that include save a lot of money, save a lot of lives, make a lot of money, make a lot of jobs. They're all there. All we've got to do is stop taking money from the fossil fuels industries.
Well, there's a good link there if you can find it. Read more about the COP26 summit. Here is the name of the link. You know,
Okay.
It's the basics of the COP26 climate summit.
Okay.
And it's worth looking at because that's kind of confusing.
Okay. Now we're going to
Saturday,
leave the
October
Pope,
30th.
and we're going to go to Saturday, October 30th, and
we've got a
there is
nice picture
of
here, so we get the
emissions,
picture
and
up.
I don't know where that is, but this article is from the Sierra Club.
Takeaways from the big oil congressional hearing.
Under withering questioning from Congress, oil executives bobbed and weaved, making
Didn't
no
they, huh?
admission of guilt.
Didn't
No, they're
they?
not guilty. But Thursday's hearing marked the first time ever that the leaders of America's biggest oil companies acknowledged, and they did this under oath,
Well, that's significant.
yeah, that their products are causing global warming.
Well, none of the witnesses took responsibility
Oh.
for the history of sowing public confusion about climate change.
How could they do such a thing?
However, the CEO of Chevron told the committee, quote, "We accept the scientific consensus. Climate change is real, and the use of fossil fuels contribute to it." And that's a milestone.
Yeah, it is.
Exxon's CEO fell back on the Weasley, quote, "can contribute."
Yeah,
He didn't really want to say anything.
yeah.
Well, Big Oil's acknowledgement of its role in climate change represents a turning point.
I think that's
does,
true.
really.
Yes, I think it does.
The committee's work will continue.
It will continue, and as a matter of fact, they will be issuing subpoenas.
Oh, yeah, this isn't over for them.
No, it's not over. Okay,
A nice picture
CNN
here.
is giving us our next
Yeah,
thing.
there we go. We got a
There we go.
nice picture of, is that a wind turbine?
I think it's a wind turbine.
Amazing.
Amazing.
After touch and go negotiations, climate emerges as a big winner in Biden's economic framework.
Now, this is not the COP26.
No, this is
what's
totally
going on-
separate.
Going on in the United States as the dust settles on the Democrats' $1.75 trillion economic framework. Climate has emerged as the big winner, a big winner. A framework crafted by President Joe Biden. You know what? I think other people probably put more into it than he did. Nevertheless, crafted by President Joe Biden and congressional leaders, includes $555 billion for climate and clean energy provisions.
Well, climate measures make up the largest policy line in Biden's framework.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's aware of this in any case.
Oh, yeah.
The White House is confident the legislation will put the U.S. on track to meet Biden's Paris Agreement goal of 50% reduction in greenhouse gases below 2005 levels before the end of the decade.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's got a plan.
Yeah.
He's got a destination.
Yeah.
So let's hope he hits it.
Yeah.
This plan expands existing home energy and efficiency tax credits.
Yes.
Okay, and creates a new rebate program based on electrification.
Right.
So
Okay.
some interesting things happening there.
Our next item has a picture of Big
That's
Ben.
Big Ben.
And you know, I went out and found this picture, and every time I see it, I think of the movie King Kong versus Godzilla.
Oh yeah.
This is Big Ben versus bronze Godzilla horse.
When I was a kid, we had an alarm clock called the Little Ben.
The little Ben. Actually, yeah, and the baby Ben.
I think it might have been the Baby Ben.
Yeah.
It was a little bitty thing. Yeah.
That's right. Not Timex, West Clocks.
West Clocks.
And
yep.
it was the first clock I ever took apart.
Oh yeah.
I can't tell you how many people who went into engineering had, you know, in somewhere in their childhood, they took apart one of those wind-up alarm clocks.
I did.
See?
I didn't put it back together again either.
The whole trick to putting it back together is you have to take it apart without disturbing the escapement spring, because that spring is so delicate. Anyway, okay.
Well, the UK wants to be the first major economy to require companies to reveal climate risks.
Yeah, the UK is pushing ahead with legislation that will make more than 1,300 of its largest companies disclose climate risks. The UK government said it plans to be the first major economy to require corporations to report climate-related risks and opportunities. They have to
The
report
proposed
opportunities.
law will apply to many of the largest traded companies on the London Stock Exchange.
Yes.
And it will become law in April of 2022.
There you go.
So it's coming up pretty quick.
That's coming up pretty
This
quick.
law will, quote now, help investors and businesses to better understand the financial impacts of their exposure to climate change.
Right.
So they've been ducking this. They're not going to be able to duck it anymore.
They're not.
People are going to know what's going on.
But you know, Tom, the things that are going on with governments and businesses are getting to be fascinating. And we will be talking about that. Okay, our next
We've got
item.
an interesting picture coming up.
We do indeed. And I found that picture.
This is like it's like a movie house or
Some sort of place. It's not a cheap place. Look
look
at
at
the
the
wall
nice
there. That's
seats.
expensive.
That's
But I could not, for the life of me, figure out where that was. I mean, it's available on the National Weather Service website.
in Washington, D.C., because that's what they tell us.
Yeah, but where in Washington, D.C.? I know.
I don't know, but
I can tell you a few things. It's not the Ford Theater. It's not in the Capitol
It's an interesting
building.
place because anybody in that front row is going to get their feet wet.
Feet?
Their feet.
Yeah, I think more than just their feet. Okay.
Well, after widespread flooding, no relief yet for the D.C. metropolitan area as 14 million people remain under alerts.
Yeah, this is from CNN. Heavy flooding inundated communities across the Maryland, Virginia area on Friday, with forecasters expecting rain to continue. Nearly 14 million people were under coastal flooding warning Saturday, the National Weather Service said. Now, they're not anymore, but the people in Savannah are, and the people in Charleston, South Carolina are. And this is a different storm. This is we're getting
It's
a
coming
drumbeat
and coming.
coming on. We're getting into crazy times here.
While a bulk of the heavy rainfall has concluded, additional rain will track from south to north tonight, and that's happening as we speak. The National Weather Service said late Friday, that was last Friday.
Yes.
Additionally, tidal and coastal flooding continues with moderate to major flooding in the forecast.
Right.
Water levels will remain elevated through at least Saturday. Now that's last Saturday.
That's last Saturday, and today is Thursday, so it's been a few days.
So it's happened.
It's happened.
It's happened
Absolutely.
already.
Okay, our next item is also from CNN.
Got a nice picture coming
We have a
up here.
picture here, and it says oil rig with oil spill, and I got that from Unsplash. They had a caption on this, and I
think if you look at it really closely, that's clouds in the background.
Yeah.
We're looking out to sea. And in the foreground, there's a strip running from left to right, and I think that's the oil spill.
And you know what? I think that's a reflection of the sky.
It could be.
I
So
think
then
that
where's the oil spill?
there might not be one. That's what I'm saying. The caption, these captions are wrong sometimes. I mean,
Sometimes they are.
These are free photographs.
Well,
They're
I'll
not
give you
100% correct.
I'll read a caption so we know what we're talking
Okay.
about. Here to stay or gone in 30 years? This is an interesting question.
Yeah.
Inside the fight over the future of the oil industry.
Well, the fight over the future of the oil industry is being decided to some extent at COP26 right now. And
Well, you've heard me say it before. It's the economy, stupid.
yeah. Oil is
The
back.
economics,
Yeah.
really.
Oil is back above $80 a barrel.
Was dropped again.
What can you say? But production has been on the decline since the turn of the century. I think they mean the 21st century here, not the 20th.
I think so too.
When I hear turn of the century, I'm thinking,
Yeah.
you know, 1900.
Yeah, we're both from the wrong century.
I think you're right. Even without a need to stop the use of fossil fuels, the oil industry can't last forever. The companies extracting oil and gas want to explore more anyway.
Well, we've talked about that.
Yeah.
We have.
It's just
Well, it's a
going on.
long article, lots of pictures. This is a very interesting article, and it's, as I said, a CNN, so they got a video attached
Got
to
a
it.
video.
The International Energy Agency says that if countries live up to the current climate pledges, demand for fossil fuels will peak around 2025. Interesting. But even under that scenario, by 2050, the world will still be consuming 75 million barrels per day, which is only a quarter less than the maximum.
I got news for you. They're not going to be consuming that much in 2050. And as a matter of fact, today in the news, there was a new analysis that was done based on the current promises that have been made at COP26. And they're saying if those promises are kept, the climate temperature increase will peak at 1.8 degrees. So
1.8.
1.8.
Cutting it close.
It's cutting it close. But nevertheless, that's down from 2.7 last week.
Yeah.
So, you know, big improvements. Things are changing. This is not going to go on forever.
Well, what will really help the world decarbonize is a fundamental shift in demand
Yes.
from customers, which range from big businesses in shipping and aviation to commuters filling up their tanks.
Right.
Electric cars can accomplish this with power derived from renewables.
Yeah.
And that's happening as we
It's
speak.
happening right now.
Well, Harbor Energy, the second largest gas and oil operator in the North Sea, is betting it continue to prioritize production while investing in carbon capture.
They're being...
Well, they're going to make money on carbon capture.
no, they're not.
Well, they think they are.
They think they are.
For 5 to 10 years, we will be prominently, Harbor Energy, a hydrocarbon producing company. Might we also have a carbon capture business?
Well, one of the things that I came across, I don't remember whether it's in the news this week, but it was one of the things that I found was that a study had been done that said that carbon capture would increase the cost of electricity from coal by 70 or 80%. So this
Well,
is...
coal is dead anyhow or dying.
Yeah, I know, but it's going to be the same for oil and gas.
Well, they're playing games. I mean, they're looking around and they're saying, well, you know, oh, let's go for carbon capture. We can make a big bucks there.
Yeah, we can keep going on the...
I think, as you do too, it's a lot better that we don't release the carbon at all before we have to
burn the
capture it.
stuff, you know. Okay, here is our next picture. This is Greenland ice, meaning ice that fell off of Greenland.
So it's floating around in the sea.
Floating around in the sea, and this particular item comes from Republic World, a publication that I really don't know anything about.
The COP26 climate summit, quote, experts warn leaders that 1.5 degrees centigrade is real science, not a political number.
Right. Ahead of COP26 in Glasgow, leading climate scientists warned that the 1.5 degrees temperature limit politicians will talk about is a vital physical threshold for the planet's climate and not an arbitrary political construct that can be haggled over. Science is not a bunch of guys sitting in three-piece suits in a back room smoking cigars and deciding what the fate of the world is going to be. Science is something that's a little bit more carefully done than that.
I think so. I was reading a little bit about this COP26. There's 25,000 people going to be there.
I know.
This is not.
My
this
daughter,
is not a dozen people floating around.
my daughter lives. She had lived in Glasgow while she was going to school there. She just got her doctorate about 2 years ago, and she married a man who's a professor at the medical school at the University of Glasgow, and they got a nice place about 25 miles out of town 2 years ago. And I'll bet they're feeling this, even 25 miles out of Glasgow. I bet they're feeling it.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay. Do you have more on that one?
I do, but I'm going to pass on it.
Okay.
I'm going to pass. I got too much to say, so
We're
I won't
up
say
to
it.
Monday, November 1st, and we have a picture,
got a nice picture here.
of a tornado.
Is that what that is?
That's what that is.
Nice picture of a tornado,
Isn't
by the
it?
way.
And this is from the BBC.
Climate change, quote, extreme weather events are the new norm. Didn't I just say something like that?
Something like that, yeah. Extreme weather events are now the new normal, says the World Meteorological Organization. The State of the Climate Report for 2021 highlights a world that is, quote, changing before our eyes, end quote. The report says the world is entering, quote, uncharted territory, end quote, with increasing impacts across the planet. And, you know, they're saying we are up 1.1 degrees. They're going to try to hold it to 1.5. 2 degrees would be bad. Anything beyond that could be a disaster. I got news for you. There's a lot of people who have lost homes, lost land, lost
absolutely.
all kinds of things who say, yeah, this is a disaster already.
Well, we just saw a picture of a couple of houses on the ocean. So I think
Yeah, and you know, like the Marshall Islands, they're...
in Vanuatu, the highest level in Vanuatu is 6 feet above sea level.
Yeah.
There ain't going to be any Vanuatu in 20 years.
You know, there's no high ground to retreat to.
No, not when you got 6 feet. Well, the 20-year average temperature from 2022 is on course to exceed 1 degree C.
Yeah.
Okay, above pre-industrial levels for the first time. And global sea levels rose to a new high in 2021.
Right. And I want to point out, those fossil fuel executives who said, yes, this is happening under oath
Yeah,
for the first time.
yeah.
If you,
They've all been fired.
Anybody, no, they haven't been fired, but anybody who doesn't believe that it's happening should consider the fact that these are the guys they have said it's happening. But you can go out and you can see the results of this. We have Lyme disease.
They've been in denial, deliberately knowing what's going on
Yeah.
and been denying to us for
We have
20-odd years.
Lyme disease in Vermont because the ticks can survive in the winter, which they were never able to do before.
That's an interesting observation, and it's a scary one.
Isn't it? And the moose in New Hampshire, 80% of the moose calves die in the first year because they're bled to death by ticks.
By ticks, wow.
And moose don't know how to groom for ticks. That's why that's happening. What does that mean? It means that ticks and moose are, for the first time in history, living in the same place. Why? Because the ticks will survive in the winter.
Yeah, interesting, unanticipated event.
Yeah.
Well, 2021 will likely be the 6th or 7th warmest year on record.
6th or 7th.
Yeah.
That means that we were lucky because it was cool.
There is hope. Focus COP 2026 to keep global temperature rise to within the Paris account 6 years ago, which is 1.5 C.
Yeah.
So there's hope.
There is hope, and as a matter of fact, one of the things that we can hope for is that there are going to be technological changes that come along. And when I say that, I'm not talking about computers and flying cars. I'm talking about some changes that are really simple. Technology
we've been talking about the cost of solar. It has plummeted.
What I'm talking about here,
Since
Tom,
we've been on this show, it's gone down about 75%.
if you pay attention to the meaning of the word technology,
Yeah.
you discover that technology means, among other things, making spears.
Making spears.
Yeah, there's a technology behind making spears.
Okay.
Bonobos, which are like small chimpanzees, make spears.
Do they really?
They hunt with spears. And they have...
They're like chimpanzees.
The chimpanzees, I don't think, do that.
No, but they're like, the bonobos are like
that's right.
chimpanzees.
So the human beings inherited They're technology from earlier species, from Homo habilis and Homo erectus.
Looks like they went beyond that.
Okay, we've gone beyond it, but I'm talking about technology. And, you know, one of the things that I keep thinking about is the city of San Francisco dumps 80 million gallons of treated waste every day. 80 million gallons into San Francisco Bay and the Pacific Ocean.
Oh, how wonderful.
Treated waste that is treated so that it's safe to dump. Okay?
Yeah.
What would
Safe
happen?
for whom?
It's safe for the environment. What would
So they
happen?
say.
Yeah, I know, so they say. It's probably too heavily chlorinated to be good for anybody. But what would happen if that got piped inland and put into shallow 8-10 foot deep ponds
And evaporated.
that farmers had on their farms,
Yeah.
you know, vineyards had on their vineyards, where it would be sprayed in order to absorb carbon dioxide from the air, and it would grow sphagnum, peat moss,
Yeah.
which is far more better at absorbing carbon dioxide than trees are.
Trees are, right.
And you allow the water in these ponds to dissipate into the ground, raising the groundwater level. What would happen if they did that with all the cities along the coast, which would be close to 500 million gallons of water a day?
Well, I think eventually they're going to have to do something like that.
Yeah, why don't they start now? Okay,
Inertia.
we should continue
A nice
going.
picture coming up here.
We do here. There it is.
And
There's
there's
all
the
the
picture.
all the culprits who are heads of G20 countries.
The heads of the G20 nations.
Yeah. Okay, this is from CNN.
And they're all wearing suits except for one guy. Well, two guys.
One of them is Prime Minister Modi of India.
That's the guy in the back with the white
Yeah, and the white kilt, it looks like.
kilt. Yeah, and then there's some kind of Arab there.
There's an Arab in the foreground. Anyway,
Very interesting.
what do you got here?
G20 agrees on key climate goals around global warming limits and coal financing, but lacks firm commitments.
We're getting beyond this, by the way. The G20 Leaders Summit ended with an agreement on climate that commits its member nations to end coal financing by the end of the year. And
they can't invest in coal anymore.
Yeah, and to aim to connect global warming to a 1.5 degrees C above pre-industrial levels.
But there's a video attached to this.
This
that's
is
worth
the
looking at.
death knell of any coal industry.
Oh, I think it is. Well, it's the economic stupid.
They can do it because they can do it.
Well, this has been confusing, so I'm going to say something to hope eliminate somebody's confusing.
Okay.
G20 is not COP26.
Correct.
Okay. The Group of 20 is an intergovernmental forum comprising the 20 biggest world economies, which is 19 countries and the European Union.
Yep.
And it works to address major issues related to the global economy.
Yeah, I can see flags back there for Germany, India, the United States. Just go through.
But this
the
is not
list.
the UN. This is a voluntary
this is not
thing.
the UN. This is
These countries getting together.
the group called the G20, the Group of 20, which are invited on the basis of their being important in terms of size. I can see South Korea and Brazil, Canada.
Well, the G20 did reaffirm a commitment for wealthy nations to transfer $100 billion a year in climate finance to the global south.
Which they've been failing at.
But they reaffirmed the commitment
Yeah.
at. So
I got news for everybody.
Yeah.
We cannot save ourselves alone. We have to save everybody, or we don't save ourselves.
Well,
this is a global thing.
Say that again, because that's words of wisdom.
We cannot save ourselves alone. We have to save everybody, or we don't save ourselves. It's that simple.
A little side note to myself here. COP26 started in Glasgow last Monday.
Yes. Okay.
It actually started on Sunday, but they didn't do anything. They
Right.
shook each other's hands and
Yes.
got a little photo op.
We have a picture of cars that are being shipped.
Is that what's going on?
They're on
They're on trains.
Trains.
And they're right next to the Volkswagen factory.
and I have
There's
no
a lot of cars there.
I have no idea where that VW factory is.
I would expect it's probably in Germany somewhere.
And for all I know, it's in Kentucky.
Well, it can be, but I think it's in Germany.
Okay, I agree with you. This is from Clean Technica.
Proposed U.S. EV incentives have created a storm of international outrage.
Why?
You're going to tell
The
us.
current EV rebate proposal, which has not yet been passed by either of the houses of Congress, would make the rebate higher for an EV made in America by American workers, and
Isn't that interesting?
higher still if those workers are part
Isn't
of a
that
labor
interesting?
union. The other countries are not happy.
No, they're not.
They want to be able to compete on
Well,
an even ground in the United States, even if we can't compete on even ground
There's a
wherever
lot
they
of
are.
politics involved, right, in this, in what's going on. The credit itself is actually a tax write-off.
Yes.
Okay, in order to get the full benefit,
You have
the
to be
buyer
rich.
must owe $7,500 or more in federal taxes.
Yeah, so you've got to be making a certain amount of money, or
So
it's not going to
people
be.
who owe no federal taxes get no money.
That's right. Poor people are not benefiting from this.
20 nations have all signed a joint letter addressed the U.S. lawmakers saying a proposed U.S. electric vehicle tax credit violates international trade rules.
I think
well,
they're-
it does. I mean, this is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they're probably right here, and we'll just see how that all
Well,
comes.
manufacturers can boost profits by moving their production facilities overseas, which is what has happened.
Yes.
Okay, but this takes millions of shipping containers and hundreds of huge ships to transport them,
I'm having a.
and all the pollution
There we
involved.
go. Sorry about the pictures. I was bumping into a computer. We're
We'll
up.
forgive you this time.
We have to go up to Tuesday. We're running a little short on time.
Well, we got a picture of a wind turbine. How about that? That's a wind turbine.
That's what they look like.
It's a pretty big one too. Look at the size of the nacelle.
Yeah. Okay.
Renewable energy could drive healthcare costs way down,
I love this.
according to experts.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about pollution making people sick. This is the
Absolutely.
other side of that same coin.
This is from Tech Times. Researchers at Columbia and Duke universities have looked at the implementation of renewable energy sources as a way of driving down medical costs.
Yep.
Their findings suggest the positive effects of moving away from fossil fuels are almost immediate. I could have told them that.
Well, I will. The positive effects of moving away from fossil fuels are almost immediate.
Yeah.
Renewables will trickle off into healthcare for a simple reason. With fewer environmental pollutants, fewer people get sick.
It's that simple. Yeah.
Thousands of deaths can be prevented by just focusing on specific areas directly affected by fossil fuel consumption.
Thousands of deaths. I got news for you also. That's
Probably millions.
just in the United States. They're saying
Well, yeah, they're talking about the United States.
9 million a year.
It could save trillions
worldwide.
of dollars in healthcare costs.
Trillions.
Trillions.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to move us on.
And we got another picture
We
coming
have a
up
picture
here.
of deforestation, and this is CNN.
Looks like it's already happened, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Wow, look at all those tree stumps.
Yeah.
You
What do
can
you-
hardly see them, but they're there.
What do you have for the title?
I bet I got a title here. Over 100 world leaders will agree to end deforestation by 2030 at COP26.
They've done it.
They've done it already?
Yeah.
Very good.
More than 100 world leaders representing more than 85% of the planet's forests will commit to ending and reversing deforestation and land degradation by 2030, a British government statement says. It would be the first substantial deal of the COP26 climate talks. It was done. This is the
This
first
is a
deal.
CNN link.
Yeah.
And there's a good 3.5-minute video about COP26.
Absolutely.
Very informative.
Absolutely.
All you ever wanted to know about COP26, but were afraid to ask.
Yes. Okay, our next item comes from Clean Technica, and we have a picture of a Lion electric school bus.
It is that.
And before we go into this, I want to remind everybody, Bloomberg NEF did an inventory of electric buses of all types in the United States last year and found there were something like 650 of them.
Oh, there should be a lot more.
All right, what do you got for a title for this?
Student Transportation of Canada orders 1,000 electric school buses from Lion Electric.
They're ordering in
Well,
one
this
order.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
this,
but
this is a very good application for electric buses.
Yeah, and they're ordering more electric buses by 50% than there are in the entire United States.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Student Transportation of Canada placed a conditional order for 1,000 electric school buses from Lion Electric, which is based in Quebec. STC, that's Student Transportation of Canada, is a subsidiary of Student Transportation of America, a North American leader in student transportation. It's hardly surprising that that's what they're leading.
Well, the Lion Electric buses will replace existing diesel vehicles. Duh. The big winners are the students. Diesel-powered buses release diesel buses release exhaust fumes and fine particulates.
Yeah.
Both of which have a negative impact.
And the kids are right
health.
up and close to them when they're getting
there.
on, when they're getting off.
So Lion, and I'm thinking that that name has something to do with ions. It's not about animals.
You might be exactly correct.
Well, anyhow, Lion estimates the deployment of 1,000 all-electric buses will eliminate approximately 23,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions per year. Now, that's a lot.
That's a lot. Oh,
and it's significantly going to reduce noise pollution.
Right.
Okay, because they're quiet.
Okay. We're up to Wednesday,
Let's move along
November
here to the last
3rd,
day.
and we have a picture of the Duane Arnold nuclear plant. And in case anybody's interested, for those people who are familiar with Vermont Yankee, you can look at that and say, wow, that's Vermont Yankee. It just doesn't happen to be on a river.
Well, that cube looks like the building at the...
That's where the reactor is.
In Vermont Yankee.
And off on the left...
It also looks like the Kaaba.
Yeah, I suppose it does.
Which is this Arabic
although
Muslim thing.
I would prefer not to go in that direction. Off on the left there, you see two buildings that look like they have huge smokestacks sticking out of the top.
Well, they're the cooling towers.
They're the cooling towers. They have these cooling towers that run along the ground instead of way up in the air. And this item...
That's what we have right here in Brattleboro.
That's exactly right. It's the same reactor design that Vermont Yankee has. This is from Power Magazine, and you have a title, I'll betcha.
That's the Duane Arnold plant, and it's now closed.
Yes.
Large solar storage project planned at a former nuclear power site.
Alliant Energy announced that a plan for a solar energy and storage facility at the site of the former Duane Arnold nuclear power plant in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. The project, when complete, will position Alliant as the largest combined solar and storage operator in the state. And I think one of the important things about this particular article is it gives you an idea. I mean, if we have a 50 megawatt array going up in Hinsdale, it's going to be only a couple of miles from the Vermont Yankee nuclear site. And
well, the high lines are already going right through that area.
Yeah. I mean, this makes power connections really easy if we just put up a huge battery in
all you need is a couple of clips, you know. You can climb up there on a ladder and clip.
It's like, who was that? Red Skelton.
Yeah.
Who did his skit about a hobo who lived in a park and got electricity from a local
I don't remember that one, yeah. Well, Alliant will initially acquire solar and battery storage from Next Era Energy, which is left over from when it was a generating station.
Yeah.
The completed 400 megawatt project is expected to be fully operational by next year. Okay. The original Duane Arnold nuclear plant was closed for good last year.
Yes.
After high winds caused damage to the plant's cooling towers.
Well, it was scheduled to be closed anyway.
Yeah, but they closed early.
They closed, not all that much early.
Not very much.
But they got to a point where they said, okay, we can repair this and we can run this for a few months, or we can just shut it down.
Just shut it down.
And the economics did not say keep it
going. Well, the 615 megawatts nuclear facility, which is about the size of Yankee today.
Yeah, it's the same plant.
Had been scheduled for closure late last year.
Yeah.
Okay. The solar installation plans to use the existing electricity transmission infrastructure.
How could you do better?
How could you, yeah.
Okay.
Well, Alliant has about 1,300 megawatts of wind power generation in Iowa. Adding 400 megawatts of solar will bring renewable generation to about half of the company's total resource mix.
Yeah.
So they're definitely moving,
They're moving.
toward
Okay.
renewables.
We've got a.
Is this the last one coming up?
No, it's not. We've
We
got one
two
more
here.
after
Well,
this.
We're
We're going to have to move
here.
fairly quickly to
Pull the
get
picture up
through
here.
both. This is from CNN.
Well, there's all those cooling towers,
Yeah.
and you can hardly see it, but there's two really tall smokestacks.
And also, you can see that there are conveyor belts that are coming up from the ground into the building
Yeah,
from the
there
left
are.
side, and they're conveying
that's
coal into the building.
a signature of a coal station.
That's right.
Those conveyor belts.
What do you got for a title for the article?
U.S., UK, and EU will help fund South Africa's coal phase-out, offering a model for the developing world.
Again, you cannot save yourself alone. So we're interested in helping South Africa save themselves.
Absolutely.
The US, UK, EU, France, Germany, they will all help fund South Africa's move away from coal. The effort would serve as a model for other nations. The mood at COP26 had been low after G20 leaders' summit failed to put an end date on the use of coal. Now, this is really helping because South Africa gets, I think it's 76%.
It's more than that.
Is it?
Well, I mentioned a couple of things. There's a 4.5-minute video on coal that's worth looking at.
Okay.
Okay. Prior to COP26, only a small number of developed nations were paying their fair share on climate financing for poorer countries. Okay.
Right.
The initial $8.5 billion partnership will help South Africa to decarbonize its coal-intensive energy system. South Africa is among the most coal-dependent nations in the world. Nearly 90% of its generation is fueled by coal.
Oh, I didn't know that. I was wrong.
Making this country one of the heaviest polluters on the planet.
Yeah, it's a big polluter. Okay, and our last story, there's a picture of a liquefied natural gas
we got a nice
tanker.
picture there. Liquefied.
And they have big spherical
Big
gas
globes
tanks
in the
inside
back. You can't see them.
that ship, and you can't see them because on the right side you can see that there's a.
You can barely see one of them, I think.
No, I think what you're seeing is a shield that is
A
over
shield,
them.
it could be.
However, this is from
Well,
CNN.
it's a liquefied natural gas tanker, in
Anyway,
case anybody's
yes.
wondering.
That's right.
Biden announces new methane rules and launches a global pledge to reduce planet warming emissions.
President Joe Biden targeted the planet warming methane emissions from the UN Climate Summit. He announced strong new regulations from the EPA and launched a global methane pledge in partnership with the EU. It has been signed by 100 companies. Now, in this article, Tom, it tells how many gas and oil wells in the United States have to be capped.
Yes, it does. It
And
does.
do you have
it's
that
an
number?
incredible number. I don't think I got that number. We've talked about it on the show.
Yeah, it's in the millions, but not all of them are actually generating any problems. But I think they're talking about 300,000 of them. And so I said to myself,
I wouldn't argue that argument. There's a lot of them.
how many wind turbines have we got?
When we don't have 300,000.
We have about 62,000 wind turbines in the United States.
That's more than I would have guessed.
For every wind turbine, we've got 5 uncapped oil and gas wells that are leaking gas.
Leaking gas. Well, methane, we've talked this before, is a greenhouse gas around 80 times more potent than CO2.
Yeah,
The only difference is it doesn't last as
doesn't
long.
last as long.
Experts have told CNN that reducing methane leaks is among the easiest ways to slow global warming.
Yes.
Okay?
And it
Biden's strategy is a rule from the EPA that would push oil and gas companies to more accurately detect, monitor, and repair methane leaks
yes.
from both new and existing wells, pipelines, etc.
And if you look, you'll see we are out of time. So if you want to put us up, we can say goodbye to everybody.
Well, we've only got a sentence to say anyhow.
Okay, say your sentence.
Methane emissions from oil and gas are the low-hanging fruit. It's the largest industrial source of methane emissions in the U.S.
Yeah. Okay.
So put us up there.
Put us up.
And I will say what I always say. You all come back and see us now, you hear?
to you next week, or you'll see us next week.